The day Claire was handcuffed and escorted out of the police station, I was there. I stood behind a dark, tinted window, among nameless shadows, watching the woman who used to be my wife cry in panic. She didn't know I was watching, and I didn't want her to. Seattle had been buried in gray rain for days. News of Claire Donovan's arrest flooded financial bulletins, tabloids, and Reddit forums. She was charged with embezzling over $2 million from a fintech startup, where she had been the chief financial officer. King County Courthouse sat in the heart of downtown. Outside, reporters swarmed the entrance, cameras pointed at anyone who walked in. Inside, I took a seat in the far back row, hoodie up, coat collar raised, head down. No one noticed me. I preferred it that way. My name is Lucas Bennett, independent investor, co-founder of a private equity firm. I lived with Claire for nearly 4 years in an apartment overlooking Elliott Bay. She was my light, until that light burned me with betrayal. We divorced a year ago. No arguments, no tears, just a signature and a silence that has lasted until today. But when I heard she'd been arrested, something in me refused to look away. I should hate her. She chose someone else, walked away without a real explanation. But here I am, hiring the best attorney, wiring money through 3-layered accounts so no one could trace it, because I know she's not the type to chase money. Something's not right, and I need to be sure that I don't let someone I once loved get buried for a crime she didn't commit. I called Julia Grant, an old friend from Harvard. She's now one of the top criminal defense attorneys in the Pacific Northwest. I need you to represent a defendant, I said, but she can't know I'm behind it. Julia raised an eyebrow. Why? Because if she knew, she'd never accept the help. Claire's bail was denied during the initial hearing. Lack of sufficient assets. She slumped in her chair, eyes hollow. She tried calling people. None answered. Brandon, the man she left me for, had disappeared. Just as she was being led back to holding, Julia entered with fresh paperwork. An anonymous party had posted full bail, putting up $1 million in collateral. Claire was released on temporary bond. The media exploded. Who would do this for an accused woman? An ex? A mystery billionaire? The speculations poured in, but none were right. She exited the courthouse looking lost. I remained seated, still. When she walked past, just a few rows away, my heart twisted. But she didn't recognize me. I left through a side exit. Outside, the rain still fell. Inside my car, I replayed the live stream of Claire's release. I zoomed in on her face. Not the confident woman she used to be, but a soul desperately trying to stand as the world judged her. I whispered to myself, I didn't do this for you. I did it because I couldn't stand to watch you fall, and no one catch you. She left on a sunny morning. I remember clearly. The sunlight poured through our kitchen window, casting a soft halo on her hair. She packed everything into 2 suitcases. No tears, no apologies. Just placed her wedding ring gently on the table and walked away. And me. I stood still for half an hour, like a man abandoned in his own home. 1 year ago, New York City. We lived in a penthouse in Soho, overlooking West Broadway. The balcony was small but close enough to hear the streetcar bells. Life seemed perfect. Thriving careers, elegant dinners, curated Instagram posts. But beneath the surface, we were 2 strangers wearing the mask of happiness. I was busy investing, raising funds, flying for meetings. She was busy presenting, networking, and keeping a secret. Claire Donovan, my wife back then, was every man's dream. Brilliant, charismatic, magnetic. But Claire couldn't survive silence. She needed presence, attention, human warmth. And I, Lucas Bennett, believed love was shown through building a future. I thought if I earned enough, gave us security, she would feel loved. I was wrong. I noticed the change in Claire when she started skipping social events, when her eyes wandered even during our dinners. What's wrong? I asked. She replied with a cold smile. Nothing. I'm just tired. Then one night, after a long business trip, I returned to find her waiting in the living room, with a packed suitcase. I'm in love with someone else, she said, blunt, unapologetic. I didn't ask who. I just went silent. "You're good, Lucas," Claire added. "You're responsible. But you're absent." I chuckled. For the first time in months, but it was bitter. "I'm still here. Maybe I've been invisible to you for a while." Claire left the next morning. No drama, no breakdown, not even a single tear. I didn't stop her. She sent one message later. "I'm sorry, Lucas." I didn't reply. I didn't go to work for a week. I drank alone in the living room, her lipstick still faintly visible on the wine glass from the night before. I signed the divorce papers when they arrived. No edits, no negotiations. She could have everything. I kept only one thing, a faded Polaroid of Claire, laughing under the sun during our trip to Santa Monica. I didn't know why I still kept it. I never spoke of Claire again, but I watched from afar. Articles praising her career, podcast interviews, pictures with the new man. Until the next image I saw, her mugshot on the news, under the headline, "CFO Claire Donovan arrested for alleged embezzlement of $2 million. I told Julia that the woman was once my wife. What I didn't say was that I still dreamed about her, dreams with no endings, only a silent stare and an unspoken question. Did you ever forgive me? Julia Grant's law office sat on the 19th floor of a modern glass tower in downtown Seattle. Floor-to-ceiling windows, walls adorned with plaques from Yale, Columbia, and courtroom victories. I sat across from her, palms damp with sweat. It had been years since we last met, but her sharp eyes still made me feel like I was under cross-examination. Julia Grant, top criminal defense attorney, and an old friend from Harvard. She believes in law over people. In court, she's a predator. In life, a lone wolf wrapped in principle. She didn't ask much, but when I mentioned the name Claire Donovan, her brow arched. Her hand reached for the case file. "Why her?" Julia asked bluntly. I stared out the window. "I need you to take this case. No questions." "Lucas," she interrupted. "I don't defend criminals out of friendship. If you want me in, give me a reason." I handed her an envelope. Inside were copies of internal emails, bank reports, and an audio clip Claire never knew I had, recorded back when she worked in New York, when her dealings with Brandon first started to smell wrong. "She's being framed," I said. "No one sees it but me." Julia stayed silent. She read, she listened. Her face shifted from icy to intensely focused. "You still love her?" she asked, like a punch I didn't see coming. I chuckled, bitterly. "I don't know, Julia. Maybe not. Maybe what's left isn't love. Maybe it's just responsibility. Or maybe I just can't stand seeing her drown with no one throwing a rope." Julia studied me. Then she nodded. The next day, Julia officially took the case as Claire's legal representative. On paper, her client was an anonymous sponsor represented via a third-party legal trust. Claire had no idea who sent Julia, but she accepted, because no one else would step forward. I watched from the shadows. No contact. No interference. Just documents, evidence, and lawyers' fees, all arranged through invisible wires. Julia texted me later. "I don't know what your motive is, but if your goal is to save her, I'll fight like she's my sister." I read her message, typed back 3 words. "That's all I need." The letter had no recipient, but every word in it pierced me like it had been written just for me. The irony? She apologized to someone she believed she'd never meet again, while I was closer than she could imagine. After the first hearing, Claire was temporarily released and relocated to a secluded apartment in North Seattle. No cameras, no reporters, no contact, except a burner phone strictly for her attorney. I paid for everything, arranged through intermediaries so no one could trace it back. Claire lived alone. No makeup, no high heels, just shadows and silence. A ghost walking through real life. And I knew that feeling better than anyone. Claire, once the dazzling powerhouse of every press release, was now hiding from the same spotlight that used to praise her. Julia told me she barely spoke, slept little. She didn't ask about who posted her bail, She didn't suspect me. In her mind, I was long gone, like a bad dream that finally faded. Until Julia handed me an envelope. She asked me to give this to the person who helped her, she said. Inside was a handwritten note. No name, no address, just the opening line. To the one I don't know whether to call a savior or a ghost from my past. Claire wrote, I don't know who you are or why you did this. But if you're someone I once hurt, if any part of you still aches because of me, I'm sorry. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just want to say, maybe love doesn't always need to be seen to exist. I read it in silence. My hand crumpled the page slightly. She didn't know how close I really was. She just sent a confession, never expecting it would reach me. I sat in my office past midnight, holding that letter. The soft light reflected on an old wedding photo I'd once tucked away, now back on the desk, unburied. And in that moment, I knew. I didn't need her love. I just needed to know she understood. I called Julia. Did you tell Claire who I am? No, and I won't, unless you want me to. Keep it that way. There was a pause. What will you do with the letter? She asked. I stared at the paper in my hand. I'll keep it, as proof that some wounds don't need stitches, just time. The next morning I folded the letter and placed it in a hidden compartment behind the bookshelf. I didn't read it again. I didn't need to. My phone buzzed. Julia's message. Main trial begins next week. Press will be everywhere. I replied with a single line. I'll be there. Still in the shadows. The trial started at 9 a.m., but I was already seated by 8. Not because I feared being late, but because I needed time to breathe. Before watching the woman who was once my entire world face the real one. King County Courthouse was packed that morning. Reporters swarmed the steps. Cameras, protesters, supporters, critics. Everyone had something to say. Courtroom number 3 was reserved for Claire Donovan's trial. Public benches lined the room. I chose the far back corner, dimly lit. Gray coat, navy tie, hat low. Part of me didn't want to be seen. The other part didn't want to feel. Claire entered in a pale gray suit. No makeup, no armor. Just shadows under her eyes and a quiet defiance in her spine. Beside her sat Julia Grant, calm, composed, with a dagger-sharp gaze and a stack of files. Across the room, Benjamin Ortiz, the prosecutor. Sharp, ruthless, media darling, and known for never losing. Ortiz painted Claire as a financial predator, manipulative, cold, calculated. He presented internal emails, ghost account ledgers, and doctored transaction records. Claire sat still, trying to hold her composure. But I could see it in her eyes. That same fear I saw the day she left me. And I did nothing. Julia struck back. She picked apart witness testimonies, exposing inconsistencies. Then came the audio clip. The one I gave her. Claire's voice, hesitant, cautious. Brandon's voice, persuasive, dominant. Claire, I don't feel right about this, Brandon. We should reconsider. The courtroom fell silent. Julia brought out her next witness. Amir Patel, a former IT staffer Brandon once tried to coerce. Disguised for protection, Amir testified that Brandon orchestrated the fund transfers through ghost accounts and pressured Claire to approve them, threatening her career. The prosecution objected. The judge allowed limited admissibility. But the air in the room had shifted. The judge called for recess. The jury would review the new evidence. Claire was allowed to return home temporarily. As she stepped out of the courtroom, she paused, turned, as if sensing something. Or someone. I didn't move. Then, her eyes met mine. Just for a second, but it was enough. She knew. I stayed behind after everyone else had gone. Outside, Seattle wind sliced through me like the night she left. Julia texted. The evidence landed. We've got a shot, I replied. I don't need a win. I just need her to come back to life. Her eyes locked onto mine. Less than a second, but I knew. Every disguise, every shadow I'd hidden in, every wall I built. collapsed. The trial was adjourned for 2 more days to allow the jury to review new evidence. Julia called that afternoon, hopeful. We might actually win, Lucas. But I wasn't thinking about victory. The next day, Claire was allowed a few hours outside her safe house. Julia arranged a meeting with someone connected to the case. I agreed. But not in a courtroom, not with lawyers. I wanted to see her where truth didn't need witnesses. Claire, after all the storms, still carried one thing: dignity. She walked into the quiet cafe by Green Lake, calm on the outside, but her eyes carried the tremors of everything she'd endured. I was already there, corner seat, coffee gone cold, heart unsteady. She froze when she saw me. Time stopped. "It's you?" she whispered. Not loud, but as if she'd just swum through a sea of doubt. I nodded. "You've been behind it all?" "Yes." "The lawyer? The bail? The apartment? The evidence?" "All of it." Claire sat down, hands gripping her glass. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why, after everything, did you help me?" I sighed. "Because I once loved you, truly, and because if anyone deserves to rise again after a fall, it's you. I betrayed you." "I know. You don't hate me?" "Oh, I did," I smiled sadly. "I hated you enough to rot in my own silence, until I realized that hate only poisoned me, not you." Claire dropped her head, shoulders shaking. She didn't sob out loud, but tears slid down her hands. "I have no excuse. I was wrong. I was stupid. I lost the only person who truly cared about me. I didn't comfort her. Some tears need to fall completely before we can stand again." After a while, she looked up, eyes red. "Thank you for not letting me drown." I nodded, no smile. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to say this, at least once. "You've said it." I stood. "Live well, Claire. Not to make it up to me, but to stop betraying yourself." I walked out of the cafe. Seattle's sky was overcast, but dry. No music, no dramatic lines. Just the peace of a man who'd finally let go. Claire didn't call after me. And I knew, this time, I was the one walking away. Not with bitterness, but with peace. People think love means coming back, but no one tells you. Some loves were beautiful once, but if you go back, they'll break you both. 3 days after our cafe meeting, Claire was officially acquitted. The media erupted. Praise, speculation, noise. Julia texted me. "She's free." I replied with a single word. "Good." That night, I returned to our old apartment in New York. It's a rental now, but I still keep a key. I stood there, alone, inside memories that never fully faded. Claire reached out. She told Julia she wanted to see me. Not to say thanks, but to say what she never had the chance to. Julia asked if I was sure. I said, "As long as it's the last time." I chose the apartment for the meeting. No reason, really. Just felt like where it began should be where it ends. Claire entered, long coat on, eyes hesitant but certain. I welcomed her in. She glanced around. Nothing had changed. The piano, the curtains, the painting she once picked. "You kept everything the same," she said. "I'm not sure if I kept it, or just couldn't change it." Claire stepped closer, close enough for me to catch her old perfume, a scent that held both youth and pain. "Lucas," she whispered, "I'm not asking for anything. I just want to know, if there was a second chance, would you choose me again?" I didn't answer right away. I looked into her eyes, deeply, honestly. And what I saw wasn't love. It was regret and growth. "Claire," I said gently, "you were the most beautiful memory I ever had, and the deepest wound I ever carried." She stayed silent, eyes glistening. "But I've learned to love you, without needing you, and I've forgiven you, without needing you to stay." She didn't protest. She nodded, softly, then smiled. A real smile, not forced. "Thank you." for loving me like that, and for letting me go again. This time, not out of pain, but out of growth. She left. I didn't follow. The door clicked shut, slowly, like a farewell that didn't need words. I stood still for a moment, then turned on the hallway light, opened the window, pulled the curtains. There was nothing left to hide. I had let go, for real. Some goodbyes don't happen because love is gone, but because finally, we've learned how to love without holding on. 3 months after the trial, I found myself in Santa Monica, the place Claire and I visited during our first honeymoon trip. I hadn't planned on coming back, but an email from Julia changed my mind. Claire now works with a nonprofit, helping women falsely accused in financial disputes. She didn't run. She didn't erase her past. She chose to use her knowledge to lift others. And maybe that was the most sincere apology she could give the world. Me, Lucas Bennett, a man who now knows how to slow down. I still run my company. I still make deals. But I no longer live to prove anything. I used to think forgiveness was weakness. Now I understand it's the strength of those who've already survived. I came here not to see Claire, but to close the final chapter of my own story. On my way to the beach, I stumbled upon an outdoor seminar. Claire was the speaker. I stood in the back, didn't step forward. Claire spoke clearly, without notes. She told her story, raw, honest, unfiltered. Then she paused, looked into the distance, like speaking to someone unseen. I was saved by a man with no name, a man I once hurt. But he still gave me a second chance. He asked for nothing, left behind no name, only kindness I will never forget. The crowd applauded. She bowed slightly, eyes shimmering. I left quietly. No one noticed. I never intended them to. Later, Julia texted. She knew you were there. I smiled. Didn't deny, just replied. She deserves to know. That night, I wrote my first letter in years. Not to send, just to write. Claire, you owe me nothing, and I've kept nothing from you. But if there's one thing I hope you carry, it's this. You helped a man like me learn how to let go. Thank you for coming, and thank you for leaving. I placed the letter behind the canvas in my old Seattle apartment, a place I no longer live in, but still visit sometimes. I took down the wedding photo, replaced it with a new one, sunrise over Santa Monica. No people, just light. I left the apartment, didn't lock the door. There was nothing left to hide. On the way to the airport, I looked up at the California sky. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about the past. And in that moment, I knew. I hadn't just forgiven her. I had forgiven myself.